When the silence is temporary, it feels different. There's a sense of waiting, of expecting that any moment the phone might buzz or the message might come through. She might even convince herself that you're just taking space, cooling down, and that things will eventually return to the way they were. But when she realizes the silence is not a pause, not a break, but forever, that's when the shock sets in. That's when the weight of finality hits her harder than she ever imagined. Silence in its temporary form can be brushed off, but silence in its permanent form is a statement louder than any words. It is not just absence, it's closure, and it's a closure she never wanted to face. At first, she may try to deny it. She may tell herself, "You'll come back," that no man who cared once could ever stay away forever. She may even interpret your silence as a strategy, something you're doing to gain the upper hand, thinking deep down that eventually you'll give in and reach out again. But when the days stretch into weeks and the weeks into months, she begins to realize this isn't a tactic, it's reality. You've truly gone silent, and not because you're trying to manipulate her, but because you've chosen to remove yourself from her world completely. That realization shakes her. You see, for so long, she thought she had time. She thought she could keep you close while she figured herself out, or that she could push you away and you would always come back because that's what you always did. She believed your presence was guaranteed no matter how she treated you or how much she pulled back. But when silence becomes permanent, it destroys that illusion. Suddenly she's confronted with the truth that your presence wasn't permanent, it was a choice you made daily. And now that choice has been taken off the table. The shock isn't just about losing you, it's about losing the sense of security she once had. She no longer has the comfort of knowing you'll always be there if she changes her mind. She no longer has the backup plan of your loyalty and attention. Instead, she's faced with the void left behind by your absence. A void she cannot fill with distractions, rebounds, or excuses. It's a silence that follows her everywhere, reminding her of what she lost, not because you disappeared overnight, but because you chose to close the chapter forever. The permanence of silence carries a message she cannot escape. It tells her you respect yourself enough not to return to someone who didn't value you. It tells her you've moved on, and it tells her she no longer has access to the part of you she once thought belonged to her. That shock cuts deeper than any argument or any words you could have spoken, because silence leaves her alone with her thoughts. And in those thoughts, the truth becomes unavoidable. And once she realizes that silence is forever, it changes everything. That is the moment she finally understands the cost of losing you. When a woman realizes the silence is forever, the shock may be the first wave, but what follows is reflection. And this part often hurts even more. In the quiet, when there are no more texts, no more calls, no more late night, "Are you awake?" messages, she's forced to sit with herself. The silence you leave behind becomes like a mirror, one that reflects her choices, her behavior, and the way she treated you. At first, she may try to avoid it, distracting herself with friends, social media, or even other men, but eventually the silence is unavoidable. And in that stillness, she begins to play back every memory, every moment where she pushed you away, took you for granted, or ignored the effort you poured into her. This reflection is not gentle, it is sharp. She starts to realize how consistent you were, how much you gave without asking for much in return, and how safe she felt in your presence. But she also realizes how often she dismissed that consistency, thinking it would never run out. It's only when the silence becomes permanent that she begins to appreciate the stability she lost. Regret creeps in, not all at once, but piece by piece. A song, a place you both used to go, even a random phrase you once said. These small triggers bring memories rushing back, and with them comes the awareness of how she mishandled the gift of your presence. You see, when someone has constant access to you, they can start to assume it's endless. She may have thought she could pull away, act cold, ignore your efforts, and still have you waiting when she was ready. But now, in the silence, she starts to see how much she miscalculated. Reflection forces her to face the reality that she didn't just lose a man, she lost someone who genuinely cared, someone who showed up, someone who valued her. And once she realizes how rare that is, the regret becomes heavy. The hardest part of this reflection is knowing there's no way to fix it. The silence isn't temporary, it isn't a game, it's permanent. And because of that, there's no opportunity to explain, no chance to ask for another try, no way to undo the damage. She's left to wrestle with the what ifs on her own. What if she had treated you differently? What if she had recognized your value sooner? What if she had chosen to appreciate you instead of test your patience? Those questions will repeat in her mind, but they will never have answers that bring her peace. This stage of reflection and regret is powerful because it does what your words never could. You could have explained your worth to her 100 times, but she never would have listened. It's only in the silence, when there is no more access to you, that she finally begins to understand what she lost. And that is when she realizes regret is the price of taking you for granted. After the shock and the regret settle in, the third stage begins: longing. This is when she doesn't just realize what she lost, but she starts to feel it on an emotional level every single day. Silence has a way of amplifying emotions. The absence of your voice, your presence, your attention starts to grow louder the longer it lasts. What once felt like freedom to her now begins to feel like emptiness. She checks her phone at night, hoping for a message that never comes. She scrolls back through old conversations, rereading your words, looking for the comfort she used to take for granted. The silence isn't just quiet, it's haunting. Longing is powerful because it turns into craving. She remembers how it felt to have someone who truly listened, someone who paid attention, someone who was consistent in a world full of half-hearted connections. She starts to miss the little things she never thought twice about before. Your laugh, your advice, your patience when she was difficult. And the more she tries to distract herself, the stronger this craving grows. So the people don't fill the gap because no one else brings what you brought to her life. What makes this stage even more intense is the unpredictability of silence. She doesn't know what you're doing, who you're with, or if you even think about her anymore. That uncertainty drives her crazy. She begins to imagine scenarios in her head. Are you moving on? Have you found someone better? Are you living your life without a second thought about her? The thought of you being completely fine without her is what deepens her longing. Because if you were chasing her, begging her, or constantly reaching out, she would feel secure that she still had your attention. But the silence makes her realize she no longer has that power. And in that longing, she starts to reach for memories that once made her feel special. She replays moments in her mind when you made her laugh, when you stood by her side, when you made her feel like she mattered. But those are just memories now, and the longing makes them bittersweet. They comfort her for a second, but the pain of knowing they will never happen again only deepens her desire to have you back. This stage of longing is when she truly begins to understand what it means to lose something valuable. It's no longer just about reflecting on her mistakes or regretting her choices. It's about feeling the absence every single day and realizing that silence is stronger than any words you could have ever spoken. And that's when she knows, deep down, she doesn't just miss you, she craves the connection she threw away. Finally, after the shock, the regret, and the longing, comes the stage that cuts the deepest: acceptance of the silence. This is the moment when she realizes the silence isn't temporary, it's permanent. At first, she might have believed that you would eventually break, that you would cave and reach out, that the silence was just a test of wills. But as time passes and nothing changes, she starts to understand the truth. This silence isn't a pause, it's the end. That realization carries a weight heavier than anything else she has felt before. Acceptance doesn't come with relief, it comes with a mix of heartbreak and clarity. She begins to see that the dynamic has shifted forever. The control she once had, the comfort of knowing you would always be there, is gone. She no longer occupies the same space in your world, and the silence has drawn a permanent line between what was and what will never be again. That's when the loneliness hits the hardest. She may still want to reach out, but pride or fear of rejection holds her back. The silence reminds her daily that she no longer has access to you in the way she once did, and that realization becomes unbearable. What makes this stage so powerful is that it doesn't just affect how she sees you, it changes how she sees herself. She reflects on the choices she made that led to this silence, and those choices weigh heavily on her. The silence becomes a mirror, forcing her to confront her mistakes, her ego, and the way she may have taken you for granted. It strips away illusions and makes her face reality head on. She pushed away something valuable, and now she can't get it back. This is also when she may begin to fear that you've grown beyond her. She imagines you thriving, living fully, maybe even finding someone new who appreciates what she overlooked. That fear stings more than the silence itself because it means she's been replaced in a way that her presence can't undo. The silence then transforms into a permanent reminder of what she lost. Not just a man, but an opportunity, a connection, and a version of herself that she can never return to. And yet, there is a strange beauty in this stage, because acceptance, as painful as it is also the clearest form of truth. She finally sees the cost of her choices, and the silence teaches her a lesson words never could. It's in this moment she truly understands that silence is not weakness, nor is it indifference. It's power and it's finality. And when she reaches this stage, she doesn't just miss you anymore, she finally realizes you're gone for good. The fifth stage is when she begins to see you in a new light, not through the lens of the past where she may have taken you for granted, but through the clarity of distance and silence. Absence has a way of amplifying presence, and when your voice is no longer in her life, your value becomes undeniable. She starts to recall not just the surface moments, but the deeper ways you impacted her. The times you listened when no one else did, the way you provided comfort without needing to be asked, the steady consistency of your presence. These memories resurface not as ordinary, but as extraordinary. She realizes that the very things she once dismissed or overlooked were the foundations of security and love. This stage is powerful because it's no longer about the loss of communication. It's about the recognition of who you were to her. The silence gives her space to replay scenarios in her mind, to measure what life feels like without you against what it felt like when you were there. And every comparison leads her back to the same conclusion. Your presence was irreplaceable. She may see other faces, meet new people, and keep herself busy, but no one measures up. That's when the silence shifts from being an inconvenience to becoming a haunting reminder of what she let slip through her fingers. Regret begins to grow stronger in this phase. It's not just about missing you, it's about wishing she had acted differently when she had the chance. She might think about the times she dismissed your efforts, took your kindness as guaranteed, or assumed your patience was endless. The silence now reveals how wrong those assumptions were. Instead of proving you would always be there, it shows her that even the most patient man eventually withdraws when unappreciated. The realization can be crushing, because it forces her to confront the truth you were never weak for staying and you're not cruel for leaving. You simply valued yourself enough to walk away from being undervalued. And in that clarity, her respect for you grows. Ironically, it is the silence she once thought was a game or a tactic that now makes her see your strength. She understands that you did what she didn't expect. You put yourself first, and that makes her recognize your worth in a way she never fully did before. This stage is where she begins to idealize you, not in a fantasy sense, but in an awakened sense. She sees you as the man who gave her more than she realized at the time, and the man who had the courage to remove himself when it was no longer reciprocated. And that shift in perception is what makes her miss you, not just emotionally, but deeply, because she knows she may never find another man like you again. And when this realization sets in, the silence no longer feels like a temporary gap. It feels like the echo of a love she may never recover. The final stage comes when the silence has stretched long enough that she begins to understand it is not a pause, not a break, not a test. It is forever. At first, she may have believed that you were simply taking time to cool off, that eventually you would reach out, that your absence was temporary. But as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, the reality becomes undeniable. The calls don't come, the messages don't arrive, and your presence doesn't return. What once felt like a waiting game now feels like the closing of a chapter, and she realizes that the silence has become permanent. This realization doesn't arrive all at once, it creeps in slowly. There may be nights when she still expects her phone to light up with your name, or moments when she convinces herself that you will come back the way you always did before. But every time silence answers instead of you, the truth grows heavier. Eventually, it settles on her with finality. The door has closed, and you are no longer a part of her world. This is the moment when the weight of loss fully crashes down, not as a fleeting feeling of nostalgia, but as a deep and permanent wound. In this stage, she begins to see the cost of her actions and choices with painful clarity. The times she dismissed your efforts, the times she ignored your presence, the times she thought you would always be there. Now they replay in her mind not as harmless moments, but as mistakes she cannot undo. Regret no longer lingers in the background, it becomes the dominant feeling. She knows she can't reach out without risking rejection, and even if she does, she senses that the bond has been broken beyond repair. The silence has taught her that your absence is not punishment, it is your boundary, your decision, and your final act of self-respect. The hardest part for her is realizing that you've moved forward. While she may still be stuck in the past, haunted by memories and what ifs, she begins to understand that you are not looking back. The silence that once frustrated her has now become the symbol of your strength and closure. And in that moment, she misses you in the deepest way, not just because you're gone, but because she knows you're not coming back. This stage transforms the silence from something she could endure into something she must accept. It no longer feels like an open-ended story, but a conclusion she never wanted. And though she may wish she had valued you more when she had the chance, she now has to live with the reality that her opportunity is gone. That is when silence ceases to be an uncomfortable pause and becomes the permanent reminder of the man she once had, the man she took for granted, and the man who chose himself over staying where he wasn't valued. And when she realizes the silence is forever, that is when she finally understands the true weight of losing you.